Yeah, but so so initially I'm sad every time, and I go, God, how did I get this?
I always think how blessed I am.
Good, excellent. We're gonna.
You can be like Tom Jones. You got to look at this guy. He music, singing. God, can he sing? Such feeling, such emotion. Such an artist.
Well, I have to.
He's on YouTube. Look what he's done now. He reached the top of the chart as 8 years old. Surpassed him. No, it was 7 years old. He reached the top of the charts.
What was I going to say? What happened? Come to me. I don't know. I came across something.
Remember Louisa used to sing at the holidays? Her father was a music guy never did anything. He didn't touch me anyway. Tom Jones gets to your heart. He ain't just like covered songs, you know. And he wrote the Christmas song.
Did he write that? Oh, that's a big song.
I'm sure. And he was Jewish.
Yeah, I was like,
No, he's Jewish.
I've done funerals. I think I've done funerals. You know, FaceTime.
No one was ever.
Yeah, I did. I did last year. Yeah. Down Marco.
Yeah. It's all Sing Street.
Okay.
That's Psalm 16.
Psalm 16. Good.
So you had a nice time with Shane's parents, huh?
I just went with it.
Converted her, I think, because he said they converted when.
Yeah.
I remember from when.
Boker Tov, everyone. Good morning. Well, we gather this morning with mixed emotions as we remember Shirley. You know, we have tears in our eyes, and we also have smiles on our faces. Because, you know, we mourn for her loss. What a loss. This lady was a great lady in so many ways, and we are going to have some recollections of her very soon. So we mourn for her passing, but we are so grateful, so appreciative of having her on this earth for almost 97 years. Ugh. What a gift, what a blessing she was. Now, we begin this service by, I'm going to ask Jerry and Stuart to stand. You're wearing Kriya ribbons. There is an ancient Jewish custom of actually tearing one's outer garment upon hearing of the passing of a loved one. Why would we tear cloth? Well, when someone has been part of, I'm going to use the analogy, part of the fabric of your life for as long as Shirley was the fabric of your lives, it's not a cut. You know, when the skin is cut, usually it heals well. When it's torn, it doesn't quite heal right. When a garment is cut, you can repair it. When it's torn, it's usually irreparable. And so you have that feeling that something has been torn in the fabric of your life right now. It will heal. It will mend itself. I promise you, in the weeks and days to come. But in the meantime, you need to express externally what you're feeling internally, and that's why we wear. Most people don't actually tear their garment anymore. Most people wear a kriya ribbon. It's a black ribbon, and the act of tearing it is important. Now, the blessing that we say before we tear the kriya ribbon is instructive of our Jewish understanding of death. We actually praise God. Seems counterintuitive, doesn't it, to praise God at a time like this? Well, as I said before, Shirley was a blessing, and you have to praise God, and you have to say thank you. Thank you for having her in our lives. And so we say, Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, Dayan ha'emet. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, Dayan ha'emet. Please be seated. If you know only one Hebrew prayer, if you only learned one Hebrew prayer in Hebrew school, it was probably the Shema, the prayer that we say in the morning and the prayer that we say in the evening, taken from Deuteronomy chapter 6. It speaks about the oneness of God. We Jews are strict monotheists. We believe in one indivisible God. But there's another kind of oneness that we think of at a time like this. It's the oneness of hearts. You know, when you've loved someone with all your heart, when you've been up on the mountain peaks with a person, when you've been down in the valleys of life with another person, the highs and the lows, when you have shared a value system, when you have history with another person, you know what happens? Your hearts begin to beat as one. And that oneness of hearts is stronger than death. That oneness of hearts that you had with Shirley will continue long after the sun has set on this day. So would you recite along with me the words of the Shema? These words you're supposed to have in your ears when you go from this life to the next. Would you recite along with me the words of the Shema for the last time for this noble, sweet daughter of Israel? Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Hear, O Israel, the Lord is our God. The Lord is one. We continue with Psalm 16, Shiviti.
Shiviti Adonai Lenegdi Tamid Kimini Balemot Lachein Samak Libi Vayagel Kvodi Av Pesari Ishkon Lavetach Av Pesari Ishkon Lavetach.
I have set the eternal always before me. God is at my side, I shall not be moved. Therefore does my heart exult and my soul rejoice. For you will not abandon me to death, nor let your faithful ones see destruction. You show me the path of life. Your presence brings fullness of joy. Enduring happiness is your gift. Adonai ma'adam v'tedayehu, ben enosh v'techashvehu. Adonai, what are we that you have regard for us? What are we that you are mindful of us? We are like a breath. Our days are like a passing shadow. We come and go like grass, which in the morning shoots up renewed, and in the evening fades and withers. You cause us to turn to dust, saying, return, O mortal creatures. Would that we were wise, that we understood whither we are going, for when we die, we carry nothing away. Our glory does not accompany us. But mark the wholehearted, people like Shirley. Behold the upright. They shall have peace. We continue with Psalm 23.
Adonai rohi lo hexar, binot sheyar bitseni, amei menu kot yenahaleini, nafshi shovev, yancheni v'maglei tzedek leman shemo, gam ki elech begeit salmavet lo erarak yatayim adi. Shiftecha umishantecha hema yenachamuni, taharok lefanai shulchan neged zorerai, dishanta vashemen roshi kosi vera revaya, Tov chesed yirdefuni kol yemei chayai, v'shavti b'veit Adonai lehorech yamim.
If you know it, please join with me in the English. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He guideth me in straight paths for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou hast anointed my head with oil. My cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Psalm 121.
Sinai eleharim me'ayin yavo esri. Sinai eleharim me'ayin yavo esri. Esri me'im Adonai Ose Shamayim Varetz. Esri me'im Adonai Ose Shamayim Varetz. Sinai eleharim me'ayin yavo esri. Sinai eleharim me'ayin
I lift my eyes to the mountains. What is the source of my help? My help comes from Adonai, maker of heaven and earth. God will not let your foot give way. Your protector will not slumber. See, the protector of Israel neither slumbers nor sleeps. God is your guardian. God is your protection at your right hand. The sun shall not strike you by day, nor the moon by night. God will guard you from all harm. God will guard your soul, your going and coming, now and forever. Words of wisdom from King Solomon, taken from the book of Proverbs. These words could have been written especially for Shirley. An Eshet Chayil, a woman of valor, who can find. She is more precious than fine pearls. Her husband trusts in her, and so he lacks nothing. She does him good, never harm, all the days of her life. She perceives that her labor is rewarding. Her candle burns on into the night. She reaches out to those in need and extends her hands to the needy. She is clothed in strength and dignity and faces the future cheerfully. She speaks with wisdom. The law of kindness is on her lips. Her children rise up and bless her. Her husband sings her praises. Many daughters have done valiantly, but you, Shirley, you excel them all. More words from King Solomon, this time from the book of Ecclesiastes. L'kol zman ve'et l'chol chefetz tachat hashamayim. For everything there is a season, a time for every experience under heaven, a time to be born and a time to die, a time to plant and a time to uproot what is planted, a time to tear down and a time to build up, a time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to grieve and a time to dance, a time to throw stones and a time to gather stones, a time to embrace and a time to refrain from embracing, a time to seek and a time to lose, a time to keep and a time to discard, a time to tear and a time to sow, a time to keep silent and a time to speak. Well, words fail us at a time like this, don't they? How can you sum up a life? How can you sum up any life with mere words, especially a life that took almost 97 years to unfold? And yet words are all we have. Our memories are what are left. The embers at the end of the day are what we have left to warm us. And words are how we express those memories, how we share those embers from the day that is past. So there are a number of people who loved Shirley with all their hearts. And I'm going to call on them now. I'm going to start with Jerry, Shirley's beloved daughter. Come forward, Shirley. Come forward, Jerry.
My mother always said, you're judged by the company you keep. And this company is just beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing this with us. We're here to celebrate my mother's life. And of course, we will mourn her because she was the most special, sassy, beautiful woman that I think most of us have ever met. And we were very fortunate to have her in our lives. She was this shining star to my family and to everyone who came in contact with her. My children, our grandchildren, and my brother's family will all be at the interment on Friday, so they could not be here with us, but I'm sure they're watching. Whenever I tell anyone that she just passed away, they gasp. They can't, what happened? What happened was she was 97 almost, and her heart just gave out. And it was peaceful, and she got everything the way she wanted. She never wanted to be in a nursing home. She never wanted to go into a hospital. She wanted to be with her family, and she was with us all the time. And she spent a week with us the last week, and it was just a blessing to have her with us. And everybody comment that we're such good children, Stuart and I and Alan and Art, and how could you not be? She made it so easy. It was like just our pleasure to be with her, and she was so thankful. She didn't stop thanking us, and I kept on saying, stop thanking us. We do it because we love you, and it's just nothing that was expected. In the recent past, people would say, oh, your mother's so great, and I would say, well, she's starting to look tired. She looks more tired than usual, but again, almost 97. But beautiful, cared about makeup. I was ordering makeup for her. We went to the Polo shop, and she ordered 2 pairs of pants there. I mean, she did not expect to die. She just wanted to keep going on. She had no reason to leave us. She walked more erectly than most of us in this room. She was sharp. She was with it to the end. Well, it's going to be very hard for me not to call her up and ask her something that I forgot the details that she always remembered. So to the last minute, she was telling us things that we just forgot. So that is also a blessing. She got to dance at Morgan's bat mitzvah, our granddaughter, and she looked forward to that. She came up, it was pre-COVID, and she flew up, and she came home safely. And Stuart and Alan kept her so safe and brought her to me every Sunday, and Art and I would make lavish dinners. And again, we had such a good time. She kept on saying, just give me hot dogs and hamburgers. I don't want anything. But we kept on making these huge, huge dinners with like steaks, and we would make lamb chops, veal chops, anything like elaborate. And then I would always like give her a doggy bag to take home. Stuart and Alan would do her wash while we were eating. And it was joyful. It was just wonderful. And if I gave her a hot dog or if I gave her a lamb chop, it was the best. It was the absolute best. She just enjoyed everything and relished everything. I have never met a more positive, appreciative, and happy person. Family was everything to her, but she loved her friends dearly. I took her to meet my friends, and she was like visiting royalty. During COVID, we wanted to keep a safe distance, so she would come. My friends would arrive. They would arrive in golf carts. They would walk. They would come in their cars, and they would stand at the bottom of my driveway. She would stand at the top just to look at her, just to talk to her. And it was so hard for her not to reach out and touch them. She wanted to physically touch them, but she touched them with her heart. And then when it was COVID, everybody was vaccinated, and she came to our house. My friends came in, and they said, could we hug you? They just wanted to touch her. And she let them because she loves them. And we kept on saying, please don't touch people all the time. I mean, one of the last times we took her, when she was with us, we took her to Flakowitz Deli in Boynton Beach for a dinner, which she ordered Hungarian beef goulash, ate it with zest. And she was going around to the tables, touching people. I said, Ma, you really can't do that. But she didn't care. She just wanted to be with everyone. And that was the kind of person that she was. She just held court all the time. I took her to see my friends and a lot of them are here, in the card room when we were playing canasta, and she just like sashayed around talking to people. And even if you met her for 5 minutes, they still remembered her, and everyone keeps on asking me about her. So that was the impact that she had on all our lives. This is hard. We also took her to one of her next to last meals was at Polo Club, and we took her to the Winner's Circle, if you're not familiar with that. And she had a beer. I mean, she really had a beer. She put on her makeup. She looked great. And she was sitting with a beer, and she ordered shema, not one portion. She said, this is really good. Get me another portion. And then she also had meatballs with it. I mean, it's like Kanahara. How do you eat like that? And she was little. I mean, she was so tiny. But she, again, a zest for life and relished everything. Another example of her being treated like royalty was during one of the last major hurricanes that hit Florida. Art and I were already down the shore, the Jersey Shore, and we were so frantic to get her out of here. We didn't know what to do. And she was very, very fortunate. We have dear friends who are here today. And she had a driver who took her to their house in Miami, and they took her by private plane to Columbus, Ohio, where she stayed with them. And then my daughter, Michelle, drove in for like 3.5 hours from Michigan to pick her up and drove her back the same day to Michigan and kept her there for a week. And then Art who was the best son-in-law in the whole world, and Alan, flew to Michigan to get her, to bring her back to Margate, New Jersey, to be with us. So it's like we would do anything, absolutely anything for her. And it was just not expected. It wasn't demanded, but we wanted to do it. So that was another way that she was treated so fabulously. You just wanted to bask in her glow and her aura and her good vibes. When I would call her every day, she would say, I'm fine, I'm fine. She never really complained. I mean, I knew she had stomach issues. Thank you, Shirley gave that to me. But she had a whole support system, and she kept on saying, I have my support system in my bedroom. She says, I have my Alexa and I have my GrandPad. We bought her a GrandPad for her 95th birthday, and she learned how to surf the net. And that's what she would do. She would look up everything. She was so knowledgeable. She read the paper every day. You could talk to her on any subject. She was just wanted to constantly learn, which is unbelievable. She never went to college, but she had a PhD in street smarts. Nobody was like she was, and she would just tell it like it is. And some people say, oh, she's so sweet. Well, she was nice, but sweet, she was tough. And I really thank her for that, because that's what she imparted to all of us. I was lucky enough to play mahjong with my mother, my daughter, my granddaughter. It was 4 generations of sitting around a mahjong table. How lucky were we? And then when she came to my house, I had her play with some of my friends. Some of them are sitting here, and they'll contest to the fact that she beat us all the time. She was the fastest, the best mahjong player. You just couldn't touch her. And after they were gone, she said to me, you know, they're really not that good. So that was Shirley. Wherever I went, she wanted to know every single detail. What did I wear? What did I eat? Who was I with? Did I have a good time? Send me pictures. When she came to the polo club, she only wanted to see Art's plaques on the wall, and she just felled from his golf wins and everything like that. She just was interested in everything and everyone. And finally, when we used to have our family dinners, she only wanted to sit next to Karen, and we used to toast. We used to pick our glasses up, and we used to toast only to additions, to no more subtractions. And even though she subtracted from our life here on earth, she will always be in our hearts and our minds. I love you.
Very nice.
Stay.
Beautiful.
I'm going to give a few. Mine will not be this long. It was informative. It was great. Okay. I met Cheryl 51 years ago. I actually knew her. She was in my life more than my mother. She was my mother. And we had a great relationship together. In all that time, we never had a fight. We never had a disagreement. We never had an argument. She was my buddy. We would drink together. We would sit around, watch old TV shows. And these are from the 60s. Mannix, Cheyenne, Wagon Train. And I don't know how it started, but I kept calling her Ma. And I think the Ma came from watching those old TV shows, because that's what they called their mothers on the old Westerns.
Hey, Ma.
Cheryl had something in common with Frank Sinatra. She did it my way. She said that she did not want to be in a home. She did not want to be in a hospital. She wanted to not be a burden to anyone. She just wanted to do it her way, and she did. Jerry mentioned about us going to the polo club and eating the meal the last time. She left one critical part out, and this will just elaborate. She ate all the things that Jerry said, but she missed one item. We ordered a banana cream pie. Jerry and I took one bite. She ate the rest. The entire time she said, "This is not that good. I'm not going to order it again," but she ate every last bite of it. I love you, Ma. I'm going to miss you, but I relish the time we spent together. And it was an honor and a pleasure knowing you.
Oh, beautiful.
Thank you.
And now, Alan? How about Alan and Stuart coming up together? Okay, guys.
This is very tough. The world according to Shirley Scherline. When I met Shirley 40 years ago, I thought I had found Donna Reed and her family. I told myself, this is the perfect family. You could feel the love emanating from that strong bond. Shirley loved life. Shirley loved her children, her grandchildren, and her great-grandchildren. Shirley loved mahjong. Shirley had a wonderful sense of humor. Shirley never met a stranger. Shirley lit up the room when she walked in. All eyes turned to Shirley. Shirley loved shopping. Shirley loved sweets and Starbucks. Shirley loved to give advice from the heart. Shirley always looked her best. After my mother's passing, Shirley reassured me that she would become my mother, and she did. Every man needs a Jewish mother. After all, she was concerned with my well-being. Throughout the pandemic, Stuart, Shirley, and I spent many hours together. And she always told me how much she loved me. She said, I want you to remember that, Alan. I do love you. Just recently, having had knee issues, I told her there was a possibility that I might need a knee replacement. Shirley, being reassuring as she always was, said, don't worry, Alan. I'll take care of you. These will be the wonderful things that I will remember about Shirley, my mother-in-law. You will be missed by all those lives you have touched. Sending you much love that you gave to all who knew you. Love you, Alan.
Everybody that knows me knows that I'm never lost for words. This is the hardest speech I've ever given in my entire life. All of our friends, all of the people I work with, everybody knows of the relationship that I had with my mother. It was very, very unique. It was very, very special. It was very different. Most people don't have the honor to have their mother live 3 minutes away from them for over 30 years. I am truly one of the most blessed people in this world to have shared my life with the most incredible mother and special person in this world. Our relationship went beyond the norms of mother and son. She was my best friend. She was my confidant. She was my advisor. She was my mentor, and always there to support me during the best and the worst of times. She told everybody how much she loved me. She told everybody. She was never judgmental of anything I did, except for all the exotic locations that I went to. She always said, don't go there. She always says, there's going to be a language barrier. How do you talk to the people? She told everybody about the love. I looked forward to spending as much time as possible with her as I could. I would speak to her on the average, I know this is crazy, of 10 to 20 times every day of my life. It did not matter where in the world I was. Everybody that knows, our close friends that are here that we travel with, Hank and Aline, Debbie and Steve, knew that I had a cell phone to reach out to her from the far corners of the earth, just to know how she was and to hear her voice. I wanted to share Alan and mine adventures with her and include her in everything going on in my life, even though I wasn't in her presence. As I said, I saw her almost every single day. And every time I walked into her apartment, she would light up as she had not seen me for months. It was her joy and her happiness. She wanted to hear it all, as my sister said. She wanted to know every little detail. She was interested in every single person that she came in contact with. They called her for comfort in times of grief. They called her as a friend, and they called her an individual, an incredible person. When Rabbi Tuff spoke with our family this week, he asked about her personality. And for everyone who knows me, I am so lucky to have inherited her love of talk and the love of people. As my sister said, there wasn't anybody that she did not want to engage in conversations with. When she would walk through a restaurant, we would have to look back to see where she was. She would stop at every table and talk to everybody in the restaurant. She didn't even know these people. But the funny thing was, they wanted to talk to her. They were interested in her life and everything about her. She would come out proudly and say, when she was 90, when she was 95, she would come out and say, I'm going to be 97 years old. And they would look at her and say, it's not possible. She had the mind of a 30-year-old. She was well-read, as my sister said. She read every day. She was articulate. She had the most beautiful handwriting in the world. She did. You could talk politics. You could talk food. There wasn't anything off limits. On those days when she wasn't feeling 100%, she would always say the same thing. She said this on Saturday, just minutes before she passed. She says, don't worry about me. I'll be fine. She never wanted to be a burden on anyone at all. She had a fear of doctors and hospitals. She got her wish. She never went to the hospital. And she didn't go to doctors very often. She was one of the first calls I made each morning, and always the last call at night. There was never a moment that I would not think about what would make her happy. And that for anybody that knew her, she knew she was the queen of sweets and the queen of Starbucks. Every time I would be out shopping with Alan, I knew what would make her happy. I probably bought her the worst carbs in the entire world. You can't imagine. But I knew how much she loved them. I would always tell Doreen, who I work with, you can't believe walking into her apartment. She had everything from Yankee Doodles. You would never know this was a Jewish woman. She only liked Wonder Bread. She loved Yankee Doodles, Devil Dogs, anything that was bad for you. And if I ever mentioned the word low fat to her, it was off base. We grew up in a house where we didn't know what vegetables were. The only vegetables that we ever had came out of a can. To this day, when I did her grocery shopping for her, because when I used to do Instacart, they would always get it wrong. She was as my sister will tell you, and we don't know if that made her stomach worse, she was the queen of mayonnaise. If it had mayonnaise in it, it was good. She knew every variety of mayonnaise, of every variety of potato salad that Publix made. She knew the New York, the Southern, and every other variety. And if I bought her the wrong one, she said, I don't like this one. My friend Alberto made a comment to me yesterday that was truly profound. He said that Alan, myself, and my mother were like three people living in the same house, even though we lived in different buildings, because he knew of the close relationship that we had. She cared about everyone, and her friends were such an important part of her life. She was always there to hear their stories and tell her stories, and to support anybody in any way they could. All of my friends adored her. I could go on forever and ever talking about her, but everybody who knew her already knows what she was about. Amazing mother, friend, and listener. As my sister said, the best mahjong player, and the list goes on and on. The last thing I want to share is her incredible love and bond with Alan, who was my rock and my driving force for over 40 years. She has been there for him. She has been his mother. Each time they spoke, my mother always told him over and over how much she loves him. And he says, I love you too, Shirley. As you all know, my heart is really broken. I just want to say how much I love you, Mom.
Beautiful. I just want to say that this mayonnaise, Wonder Bread loving lady, when she was a young girl, she lived in a cold water flat in Williamsburg, and it was right next to Yonah Schimmel's Knishes. She had, she was born in the Lower East Side and grew up in Williamsburg. She was the daughter of Morris and Mary. And she had two brothers, the late Harry and Seymour. And it was a very Jewish upbringing, a Yiddish-speaking home. Her dad was the vice president of a shul. It was Shabbos and all of the Jewish holidays were observed. But when she went out, she was everybody. She loved Jewish people. She loved Gentile people. There was nobody that she didn't love. People haven't spoken about how beautiful she was. She had these gorgeous hazel eyes, blonde, and always just presented herself to the world as this beautiful person, outwardly and inwardly as well. I mean, she just lit up a room. And she had moxie. That's the only word that I can think of it. She had a can-do, never take no for an answer kind of attitude toward life. She did some remarkable things. She worked for a private detective agency when she was young. Can you imagine such a thing? They're doing stakeouts. She got herself a job as the registrar of the New Jersey Musical Conservatory. She had no musical background. How do you do that? She would audition young musicians, and she would say, "That's good. You're in." I think you would have passed the audition, Manny. There was something fun about this woman. She was conventional in a lot of ways, but there was something fun about her. She had this big heart and this open mind about everything. She had one love in her life, and it was a love for the ages. It was Irv. Seymour, Shirley's brother, was stationed in Europe during the Second World War with this guy Irv, a captain in the. I don't know if he was a captain then, but he rose to the rank of captain. This tall, handsome, guy, and somehow, I guess back in Europe, he said, I got a sister you got to meet. So they met. He was still in uniform. And they were married in 1946. And he remained in the military. And, there were years he re-upped. He fought in Korea. And there must have been a long time, there must have been long stretches in which they weren't together. But, boy, they were linked heart to heart. This was a love for the ages. He came back. He wanted to actually have a career in the military, and she said no. He was just about to become a major. So he went on to become a very successful CEO of many of the biggest shoe manufacturing and companies in America. And he remained the captain. He remained the captain and the one in charge in the house, but she was the doer. The family told me of this situation where one time, she did everything, but he commanded. He was in charge, and it just worked. Somehow it worked. The alarm went off. Somehow they set off an alarm in a house, and Jerry and Stuart have a memory of their mother under a bed looking for the wires, and he standing there saying, Cheryl, look over there. But it worked. She didn't cook that many things, but what she cooked were very good. Veal, scallopini, piazzolla, and he loved it. Anything she served, he ate up. But then he started gaining a little bit of weight in middle age. And so they'd go out to restaurants, and of course in nice restaurants they'd bring a bread basket, and when he was looking away, she would pull it away. And he would say, leave it alone, Cheryl. Cheryl, leave it alone. They had so much fun together. They traveled around the world. They went to Europe, cruises in the Caribbean. They were in Africa. They loved coming to Miami and eventually settled down here. Shirley loved her grandchildren. She was known as Grandma Buddy. Isn't that cute? Grandma Buddy. And so she leaves a legacy of grandchildren, Beth, Michelle, Judith, and Lyle, and great-grandchildren, Morgan, Max, Ian, and Joshua. This was a lady. I need to mention that she's got some of the spouses of her grandchildren. I know she loved Dave and Scott and Tracy, and I just wanted to say she did have a third child, Jay, who unfortunately passed away at the age of 62, and she loved him dearly as well. And Lori, Jay's wife, stayed in touch with the family and loved Shirley right to the end. Well, there was nobody quite like Shirley in this world, and she touched many, many hearts. We've all experienced social distancing during this pandemic, haven't we? And Jerry talked about how her friends would come to visit Shirley, and she would stand at one end of the driveway, and they would drive up, and she always wanted to touch them, but it was an iffy proposition to be in close physical contact with each other. And fortunately, things are getting a little better. But I would say that she didn't stop touching people. I mean, even if she couldn't be in their physical presence. Some people will touch your life whether they are 6 feet from you, 2 feet from you, or 2,000 miles from you. This is a lady who will continue to touch your hearts. This is a lady with whom you will have the closest contact with, in spite of the fact that she has gone to the next chapter of whatever that is, gone to the world to come. She will continue to touch your hearts and to be part of your lives. forever. And so we thank God for every moment that we had her in our lives. And we say, Amen. God, you give us loved ones, and you make them the strength of our life and the light of our eyes. They depart and leave us bereft on a lonely way. But you are the living fountain from which our healing flows. To you the stricken look for comfort, and the sorrow-laden for consolation. O God, we see life as through windows that open on eternity. We see that love endures and the soul endures as you, O God, endure forever. We see that the years are more than grass that withers, more than flowers that fade. They weave a timeless pattern in a world that is the dwelling place of your love and your glory. Please rise for the El Malei Rachamim.
El Malei Rachamim, Shoken Bamaromim, Hamitzei Menocha Nechona, Takat Kanfei Ashchina, Im Kedoshim Uteorim, Ki Zohar Harakia, Mazirim, Et Nishmat Sara Bat Moshe Shel Halcha Leolama, Baal Harachamim, Yastireha Beseter Kenafav, Leolamim, Bitzuror, Hakayim et Nishmata, Adonai Hunachalata, Vetanuach, Beshalom, Amishkava, Benomar, Amen.
Compassionate God, eternal Spirit of the universe, grant perfect rest in your sheltering presence to our beloved Shirley, who has entered eternity. O God of mercy, let her find refuge in your eternal presence, and let her soul be bound up in the bond of everlasting life. God is her inheritance. May she rest in peace, and let us say, Amen. Now, Shirley will find her final resting place in New York. We don't say Kaddish until someone is actually buried. So this concludes our memorial service here. And what a tribute to a remarkable human being. We have a reception. Shai, it's in the chapel. Oh, it's in the ballroom. So please join us in the reception. Allow the casket to leave the sanctuary first.
Alan, you were the best. I love you. So great, Alan. You were really amazing.
So much amazing. It was really, you just captured the essence of us. Can I leave my thing there?
Thank you, Rev.
I just feel then I had to talk about your dad a little bit because that was such a great story.
It's great.
Yeah. And I love the detective agency. I think that's it.
I remember. Doing more stories.
Moxie.
Well, it's something.